Ella was curious about how, right under her nose, Jason got involved with that woman. Ella had divorced a few years ago and lived alone. Jason, a good-looking and diligent man, was undoubtedly a perfect choice for settling down. Since Jason's wife passed away due to illness, she had developed certain thoughts. Living on the ground floor while Jason resided above, their old building didn't have great sound insulation. The advantage of being on the first floor became apparent, and Ella could hear every little movement upstairs. Thus, many unexpected coincidences occurred. They bumped into each other taking out the trash, coincidentally bought groceries together, and even happened to go to the park for exercise. The places they exercised were just across the street from each other. Ella danced on one side of the road, and Jason played badminton on the other. Afterward, they would walk home together. People who didn't know them well thought they were a couple. Look at how close they seemed. Someone had certainly taken advantage of the situation. The woman who caught Jason's eye was named Lily. Younger and more beautiful than Ella, Lily was a newcomer to Jason's badminton team. In matters of mutual interest, all it took were a few glances, a subtle feeling, and a half-meaning, and things could happen in minutes. Sure enough, Jason and Lily showed signs of something more. Ella sensed that something was off, especially one morning when her square dance ended, and she went to find Jason. She saw Jason and Lily earnestly discussing badminton skills. Observing Lily from afar, around 30, slender, and still charming, Ella didn't know if she was single. But the way Jason looked at Lily had a flicker of flame. A chill ran down Ella's spine. Trouble was brewing. Ella pretended not to notice Lily, greeted them. "Jason, aren't you leaving yet?" Her tone was as warm as a couple's daily life. Jason waved at her. "You go ahead, I have something here." Sourness filled Ella's heart, but she couldn't cling excessively. That would make her appear lacking in class. Though reluctant, she had to give up. She glanced at Lily from the corner of her eye, but Lily didn't even look at her. This jealousy tasted quite bitter. An uneasy Ella stood by the window, waiting for Jason. The morning had passed, and Jason hadn't returned. Ella felt even more uncomfortable. Could it be that those two had gone out to eat together? She had known Jason for so many years and had never had a meal together. They had scarce opportunities to eat together, even less so after Jason's ex-wife was alive. She had gone to their house for dinner while the woman was still alive. After she left, Ella had sent dumplings to Jason a few times, and he politely accepted, even giving her some fruit in return. Once, she accidentally discovered that the dumplings she had sent were thrown into the trash by Jason. Uncomfortable accepting her goodwill and not liking dumplings, he had no choice but to dispose of them. Since then, she hadn't sent him any food. But now, he was going out to eat with another woman. A sense of crisis instantly bombarded Ella. Jason returned only after the lunch hour. Ella pretended to carry a bag of garbage out, and they bumped into each other. "Back so late, have you eaten?" Ella saw Jason holding a transparent disposable lunchbox. The contents were unmistakably his most disliked dumplings. Jason laughed awkwardly. "Already ate." He was already stepping up the stairs, attempting to slip away, clearly not wanting to talk to her. The dumplings she made weren't to Jason's liking, but he brought food from outside. Ella felt a lump in her throat. Ella quickly learned from a few gossip-loving square dance teammates that Lily owned a dumpling restaurant and was a small business owner. No wonder, Jason's dumplings must have been brought from Lily's shop. Ella was now intrigued by the dumplings. Despite her usual stinginess, she ordered takeout that day, wanting to taste what made Lily's dumplings different. Quite ordinary, not as delicious as hers, she concluded. This discovery instantly boosted her confidence. She realized she was still superior to Lily. To the point that when she saw Lily again in the park, her head was held higher than usual. Look at Lily's figure, not even strong enough for a fight. By the way, Lily probably didn't know about her relationship with Jason, although they hadn't explicitly clarified it. Anyway, everyone recognized them as a couple. She had to present herself with the demeanor of an older woman. The next day, when Ella went to the badminton court to find Jason, she crossed the street like a confident crab. "Jason, come with me to buy fish. I can't decide, and you can help me." Ella's tone left no room for refusal, as if they were a real couple. If Jason declined, Ella couldn't save face. He glanced at Lily, who was playing with someone else. Lily seemed focused and didn't seem to hear what was happening on their side. Swiftly, Ella efficiently packed up Jason's things, not giving him a chance to linger. Jason followed Ella, and they left discreetly. Ella made sweet and sour fish and served it to Jason. "Here, since you helped me pick the fish, let's collaborate to finish it." Her playful remark amused Jason. Sitting down, Jason and Ella enjoyed the fish together. Ella chatted with him casually, discussing his ex-wife, their sister-like bond, and how Jason's ex-wife entrusted him to her care before she left. The conversation got emotional, and both Ella and Jason's eyes welled up. At that moment, Jason's phone inconveniently rang, interrupting the emotional scene Ella had orchestrated. The call was from Lily, and Ella didn't know what they discussed. Jason left her abruptly, saying he had something to attend to, and hurriedly walked away. From that day, from the moment he answered Lily's call, Ella noticed that Jason was intentionally avoiding her. Every morning, Jason no longer waited for Ella, leaving half an hour earlier to exercise. Previously, when they went to the park together, now he had disappeared on a bike somewhere. Several attempts to connect left Ella feeling disheartened. What did Jason mean? Did he want to break things off with her? Saying break off wasn't accurate, he seemed to want to create distance. Observing Jason on the badminton court, exchanging glances with that young girl, Ella didn't know where to direct her frustration. Ella had been to Lily's dumpling restaurant, and on a day when Lily wasn't there, she learned an even more despairing piece of information from the waiter. Lily was single, childless, with a house and a car. Honestly, with these qualifications, Ella had no advantage. It seemed challenging to compete with Lily for Jason. Ella felt deeply despondent. Maybe there was no fate between her and Jason. After all these years, it had always been a one-sided effort on her part. Jason had never shown any particular affection or care towards her. It was just two people conveniently accompanying each other, often arranged by her deliberate coincidences. Ella decided to put this matter aside. Holding in her frustration might result in internal injuries one day. When Ella saw Jason again, her attitude took a 180-degree turn. The previously warm and lively Ella now resembled something just taken out of the fridge, emitting a chilly aura. Jason, burning with the heat of a new romance, remained largely unaffected by Ella's coldness. Perhaps he even hoped Ella would freeze into an ice stick on her own, making it easier for him to distance himself. Despite putting on a facade, Ella found it to be self-deception. As soon as she saw Jason openly and romantically involved with Lily, her anger surfaced. Someone who knew about their relationship asked Ella, "What's going on with you and Jason? How come I see him hanging out with that girl he plays badminton with?" Ella couldn't hide it, feeling worse than being scolded face to face. At least with a scolding, she could argue back. Whom could she argue with in this situation? That day, after finishing her square dance, Ella walked home. It had been quite some time since she and Jason were intentionally avoiding each other. Despite living in the same building, their paths rarely crossed. Initially, Ella didn't pay attention, but she noticed Jason and Lily riding their bikes side by side behind her. They were chatting happily. Perhaps engrossed in their conversation, they didn't notice Ella. Lily's bike bumped into Ella's shins, causing her some pain. They were deliberately causing trouble, and she walked right into it. Pointing at Lily, Ella unleashed a torrent of curses, turning all the pent-up frustration into a string of profanities. Lily kept apologizing, but Ella wouldn't let up. She continued to scold, venomously and gleefully. Ella's venting might have been harmless, but Jason couldn't hold back. "Ella, it's such a trivial matter. Why can't you let it go? You're acting like a shrew." His words added fuel to Ella's fire. Ella's cheeks trembled, and she glared at Jason, eyes spitting fire. "Jason, what's your problem? Now it's your turn to scold me." Since he called her a shrew, she decided to embrace it fully. She lunged at Jason, ready to scratch and claw. The situation escalated, and if it weren't for the bystanders intervening, a bloody incident might have occurred. Ella never went to the park for square dancing again. She felt it was too embarrassing. There were even rumors that two women fighting over a man had resulted in injuries. Ella hadn't expected her relationship with Jason to become so strained. They rarely met, and even if they did, it was like encountering enemies, no words exchanged. On the contrary, Lily became a frequent visitor to Jason's place. Once, they bumped into each other at the entrance, and Lily arrogantly raised her head, wearing a triumphant smirk. Later, Ella realized that their last confrontation was entirely instigated by Lily. She targeted Ella's weaknesses, intentionally bumped into her, and ignited the war. Without Lily's tactics, how could Jason completely break ties with Ella? How could she pull Jason to her side? Understanding all this, Ella saw no point in confronting those two scoundrels. Ella began to rediscover the joys of her life, going hiking and traveling with a few old classmates, leading a colorful and fulfilling life. During her travels, she met a man who wholesaled toilet paper. Though not as refined as Jason, he was genuine. With new pursuits and a new life, Ella spent less time at home, rarely paying attention to Jason and Lily. One day, while delivering something to a classmate's house, Ella unexpectedly encountered Lily coming downstairs. Surprised, Ella asked her classmate, "Why is Lily here?" The classmate was puzzled. "How do you know her?" Ella couldn't reveal that she knew Lily because of a romantic rivalry. The classmate added, "This woman is quite cunning. Her mother lives upstairs, and she freeloads here. Her ex-husband divorced her because she had a gambling problem and lost their house. I heard she's now scamming money from men." Ella was shocked, "But doesn't she own a dumpling restaurant?" "That dumpling restaurant isn't hers, a friend or someone else owns it. She's just a helper." Feeling a mix of pity and irony, Ella realized that Jason probably didn't know Lily's true nature. Oh, he was in for a rough time. A few days later, while grocery shopping, Ella saw Jason from a distance. Despite everything, she felt a twinge of sympathy and decided to give him a friendly warning. She called out, "Jason." As he turned around, Ella noticed that Jason looked much wearier. His once fair complexion now carried a hint of melancholy, and his eyes lacked their usual liveliness. "Jason, I heard about Lily," Ella began, but Jason sighed heavily. "Ah, you've heard, haven't you? Let's not talk about it, let's not talk about it." Jason shook his head. "I deserve this misfortune, falling for a woman's appearance completely. Now, where can I go to reason things out?" As he spoke, tears welled up in his eyes. Ella then learned that Lily had deceived Jason out of 50,000 yuan. After finding out about Lily's past and proposing a breakup, Jason wanted his money back, but with no evidence, Lily flatly denied everything. Many men, like Jason, fell victim to the superficial allure of a woman's youthful and attractive face. After suffering such a blow, Jason realized that Ella was a good person with a kind heart. "Ella, I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have called you a shrew last time. Where can you find such a good shrew?" Jason felt hollow inside, speaking in a low voice, stealing glances at Ella. Ella chuckled, "Oh, please. I have a rough temper, and I might indeed have the potential to be a shrew. Look at what you're saying. You're such a good person. Do we still have any chance?" Jason stammered. "Jason, I'm getting married next month. You're welcome to come to the wedding. I also wish you find the right person soon," Ella said deliberately, then turned and walked away. Jason stood there, stunned. He sensed a hint of mockery and sarcasm in Ella's words. In truth, Ella didn't mock or ridicule him because she had already forgiven him. Being nurtured by love, Ella's heart had expanded. Instead of reveling in Jason's misfortune as a consequence of his own actions, she felt sympathy for his plight. Through these experiences, she understood a profound truth: there are countless types of men in the world, and there will always be one that suits you. Clearly, Jason wasn't her type. The man who suited her was at home preparing dumpling filling, eagerly waiting for her return to make dumplings together.